When President Ibrahim Traoré walked into an abandoned gold mine, he didn't expect to find women and children digging with bare hands. What he uncovered next would shake the entire world and expose the biggest lie ever told about Africa's wealth. It was supposed to be a routine inspection. President Ibrahim Traoré had received whispers, quiet, nervous voices from deep inside the villages of Burkina Faso. They spoke of a European-run gold mine, hidden far in the eastern forest, where no one dared to go. The locals called it the Deep Hole. The whispers grew louder until Traoré couldn't ignore them anymore. One early morning, without cameras, without media, and only with a small trusted team of soldiers, Traoré set out to visit the site. The journey was long and dangerous. The roads were rough and the forest was thick. But Traoré didn't stop. He had a mission. When they arrived, the mine looked quiet from the outside, too quiet. A few foreign trucks were parked near the entrance, and a small group of European supervisors stood nearby. They were shocked to see the president in person. "What are you doing here, Mr. President?" one of them asked, pretending to smile. "I came to see the truth," Traoré answered calmly. With a signal from his hand, his soldiers moved in. They went deep into the mine, ignoring the protests of the supervisors. That's when they heard it. Faint cries, like those of children. Deeper into the tunnels, they found a horrifying sight. Dozens of women and children, covered in dust and sweat, using their bare hands to dig for gold. Some were too weak to stand. Others stared with empty eyes. Most were locals, some as young as 6. Traoré stood frozen. The scene broke his heart. He clenched his fists. These were his people, enslaved under the ground of their own land. He turned to the mine supervisor. "You will explain this," he said. But before the man could answer, a young boy stumbled forward, holding something shiny in his hand. It was not just gold. It was something else. The boy's hands trembled as he held out the object. It was a small golden pendant, but it wasn't ordinary. On it was a symbol, an ancient carving that looked like a sun surrounded by chains. Traoré took it gently from the boy's hand. He recognized the symbol instantly. It belonged to an old colonial mining company that had supposedly left Africa decades ago. But here it was, still operating, still enslaving. The European supervisor tried to speak again. "These people volunteer. They are paid, Mr. President. You must understand." Traoré cut him off sharply. "Paid? Do children volunteer to break rocks with their hands for 12 hours? Do mothers volunteer to cough up blood while digging in the dark? No. You forced them." He turned to his soldiers. "Search the entire site. No one leaves. Check every tunnel, every building." His men moved fast, spreading across the mine. What they found next was worse than anything they imagined. In a hidden room behind steel doors, there were ledger books, handwritten records of shipments. One entry stood out. Gold shipped to Marseille, 2 tons. Labor, 56 children, 17 women. Status, expendable. Expendable. That word burned in Traoré's chest like fire. He took the book and handed it to his commander. "We are not done here," he said. "I want every name behind this exposed." Outside, the rescued women and children were gathered in makeshift tents. Some cried. Some just stared at the sun, as if they had forgotten what light looked like. Traoré knelt beside a little girl who had blisters all over her palms. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She whispered, "Aissata." He removed his scarf and wrapped it around her shoulders. "No one will hurt you again." But even as he said those words, a voice crackled through one of the soldiers' radios. "Sir, we found something else. Something bigger. Buried under Tunnel 3. Traoré stood up slowly. "Show me." Traoré followed his men into Tunnel 3, where a section of the wall had been freshly dug. Dust still hung in the air. His boots echoed as he stepped into the dimly lit corridor, lit only by flickering headlamps. At the end of the passage, a group of soldiers stood in silence, staring at something half-buried under the rocks. A soldier pointed. "Sir, look." There it was, a rusted metal container, long and narrow like a coffin. On its surface were symbols, not just company logos but military insignias. French. Belgian, and strangely, American. Traoré narrowed his eyes. Open it. They pried the lid off carefully. Inside were files, photographs, and digital hard drives. The documents detailed not just the mine's operations, but secret partnerships. Charts showed money trails that led to foreign banks, private arms deals, and lists of names. Politicians, CEOs, even officials from West African governments. Traoré's voice was low. They've been stealing from us and using our people like animals, all while smiling in front of cameras, giving us aid and loans. He turned to his team. We expose all of it. No negotiations. But just as he spoke, one of the hard drives beeped to life. A video began to play on a soldier's tablet. It showed a conference room in Europe with powerful men seated around a golden table. One of them spoke clearly in English. The African leaders won't say a word. And if they do, remove them. We control the gold. We control the press. We control the people. Traoré's jaw tightened. One of the men in the video was a current head of state in West Africa. Someone who had smiled with Traoré at summits, shaken his hand. The president turned to his intelligence officer. I want this man. Now. Suddenly, an urgent shout echoed from the entrance of the tunnel. Incoming chopper. Armed. It's not ours. Traoré didn't flinch. He stepped into the open, the wind from the helicopter already howling above the mine. He looked up at the dark shadow circling above. Let them come, he said. They brought war to our land. Now we fight back. The helicopter circled lower. Traoré stood tall, hands behind his back, his military jacket flapping in the wind. His soldiers aimed their weapons, eyes steady, hearts pounding. The chopper wasn't from any known military. It had no flags, no markings, just matte black paint, the kind used for covert missions. Through the dust, they could see masked men inside, heavily armed. One of them leaned out with a loudspeaker. This operation is classified. Withdraw immediately or be neutralized. Traoré stepped forward and replied without hesitation. His voice carried by a field mic. This is Burkinabe land. You are trespassing. Surrender or face the wrath of a people awakened. No answer. Suddenly, the chopper opened fire, not at the soldiers, but at the mine entrance. Explosions rocked the ground, blocking the tunnel with fire and debris. The enemy wanted to destroy the evidence. Protect the files, Traoré yelled. The soldiers scattered, shielding the women and children. Some grabbed the hard drives and documents, diving for cover. The gunfire stopped for a moment. The chopper hovered again, waiting. Then a whistling sound. Boom! A surface-to-air missile streaked from the forest and hit the tail of the chopper. It spun, smoke trailing, and crashed just beyond the trees in a fiery blast. Traoré turned to see a hidden platoon of Burkinabe Special Forces emerging from the brush. Their leader saluted. We tracked the signal, sir. Reinforcements arrived. The children cheered. The rescued women cried and hugged each other. But Traoré wasn't done. He walked over to a box the helicopter had dropped before the crash. Inside were satellite phones, tracking devices, and dossiers marked with his name. They had planned to kill him. Traoré looked at his men. We were not just protecting children. We were standing in the way of a system built on blood. He held up one of the documents. This is no longer just about a mine. It's about who owns Africa. The sun was setting now, casting a blood-orange glow over the destroyed mine. Traoré stood in silence for a moment, holding the dossier with his name on it. His picture was on the first page, marked in red ink. Eliminate high risk to foreign interests. He handed it to his intelligence officer. Send this to every African leader who still believes they're safe. Let them see how these people really operate. Just then, one of his soldiers approached with a dusty old man they had found hiding in a tool shed. The man's clothes were torn, his face gaunt. Who are you? Traoré asked. The old man looked up slowly. I was the chief here before they came. I refused to give them the land, so they took my family. Made me watch as they turned my village into slaves. Then they forced me to work underground for years. I dug the first tunnel. Traoré stepped closer. Your name? Kudugu. Traoré took the man's hand in his. Kudugu, your pain will not be in vain. You will help us rebuild, and we will name this land after your people, not theirs. As night fell, his team set up a secure perimeter. Medics treated the wounded. The rescued children were fed, their names recorded. Drones circled above, watching for any further attacks. In the command tent, Traoré gathered with his top advisors. They laid out maps across the table, not just of Burkina Faso, but of similar mining zones across Africa. Patterns emerged. Locations with high gold exports, European-linked contracts, and reports of missing villagers. We were blind, one officer whispered. No, Traoré said firmly. We were distracted, but now we see clearly. He placed a red pin on another map location, a diamond mine in Côte d'Ivoire. Tomorrow we move again. This is no longer just a national mission. This is a continental awakening. Suddenly, the satellite phone rang. A voice came through, low, panicked, with a French accent. You're making a mistake, President Traoré. We can still offer you a deal. Money, silence, power. Just name your price. Traoré leaned in. Africa is not for sale, and neither am I. He ended the call. But outside the camp, deep in the shadows of the forest, someone was watching. A tracker, a spy. He whispered into his mic. They've discovered the network. Phase 2 must begin. Far from the camp, in a marble office high above the skyline of Paris, a group of executives gathered for an emergency midnight meeting. On a giant screen was a live satellite image of the destroyed mine in Burkina Faso. One man, wearing a navy blue suit with a gold pin, slammed his fist on the table. He wasn't supposed to find it. The tunnels were hidden. The documents burned. Another voice, calm but cold, replied. But he didn't just find the mine. He found the network. On another screen, a map of West Africa lit up with red blinking dots. Every single one linked to illegal operations, resource extraction sites, and ghost labor camps run by shell companies. And Traoré had just started connecting them. Activate Phase 2, the man ordered. Discredit him, isolate him, or eliminate him. Back at the temporary Burkinabe base, President Traoré met with trusted African leaders through a secure satellite call. One by one, their faces appeared on screen, leaders from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and even distant Congo. Brothers, Traoré said, we must understand they don't fear our armies. They fear our unity. General Doumbouya of Guinea nodded. What happened at your mine is happening here too. A Malian official added. They're bribing ministers, using our own people to keep the chains on. Traoré looked into the camera. Then it's time we break those chains together. They agreed on an emergency summit, but only in a safe, undisclosed village. No translators, no press, no outside eyes. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, chaos was being planted. In the capital city of Ouagadougou, something strange began to happen. Anonymous social media accounts, many with no followers, started flooding timelines. They posted fake videos, edited to make it look like President Traoré was forcing children into mines instead of rescuing them. Other posts claimed he had made secret deals with Russia, that he planned to sell the country's gold to foreign warlords. First, no one believed them. But the posts didn't stop. Within hours, the hashtags #TraorÉexposed and #GoldForGuns began trending. Not only in Burkina Faso, but across Africa and even Europe. International news outlets, many of which had never reported on the mine rescue, suddenly jumped in. Burkinabe president accused of human rights abuses at mining site. Traoré's secret gold operation raises questions of corruption. Traoré's media team was overwhelmed. No matter how many press conferences they held, the lies were spreading faster than the truth. Inside the war room, one of his communication officers said, "Sir, this is coordinated. They've activated media cells. This isn't just a smear. This is war." Traoré nodded. They want the world to see a monster, because they're afraid the world might see a leader instead. Suddenly, an agent from his cyber defense unit burst in. "We traced one of the main accounts. It's not local. The signal bounces between servers in Brussels, Geneva, and Johannesburg. But the original source was in Washington, D.C. The room went silent. They're using global influence to control the African narrative, Traoré said. They did it to Sankara. They did it to Lumumba. But they will not do it to us. Just then, a soldier rushed in from outside. Sir, a group of villagers is here. They want to see you. Traoré stepped outside the command tent. Hundreds of villagers stood in the moonlight. Many held candles. Some had children on their backs. Others carried signs crudely written in French. Traoré is our voice. No more chains. Our gold. Our land. Our leader. They began to sing softly. A local protest song turned anthem. No one will speak for us. No one will silence us. Traoré stood still, eyes full of emotion. Then he stepped forward, lifted his fist into the air, and shouted, Africa is rising. The crowd erupted. But deep underground in another country, beneath the forests of Côte d'Ivoire, the same symbol found on the gold pendant was being carved into a tunnel wall.